Well,
If it's okay with you, Dr. Grande, I'd like to, call the meeting to order.
Yes.
All right, thank you. Welcome everyone to the December 6th, Facilities and Finance, Committee, meeting. At this time, I would like to take a roll call. Dr. Grande?
Here.
Mr. Miller?
Here.
Thank you.
I'll just note, Mr. Henry is en route from the airport.
Yes, he just landed a couple minutes ago and you'll be here as quick as possible. Thank you. I'd like to move forward with the approval of the November 1st, 2023 minutes. Believe the committee had an opportunity to look over those minutes. Can I get a motion to approve those minutes? So move. Can I get a second?
I'm not sure I can second that. It wasn't here.
You
I guess I
can,
can second the motion, I just can't vote on it.
you can second the motion.
I will second the motion.
Those minutes, yes, thank you.
Yeah.
And yeah, you're in receipt of the minutes
Yeah.
of November.
But I can't confirm that they accurately reflect the meeting that I guess.
What you told me you've been watching. What the video. So I want to welcome Mr. Miller to his first facilities finance meeting. So it's a pleasure to have you here with us on the committee. With that, we want to always start with our mission and vision and what guides our work. We have a number of topics that we are going to go through. I'm going to pass the clicker over to Mr. Malone, who's going to give you some project updates in terms of where we are with some of our scoreboard, our bleachers, our signage. We're going to talk about our condition assessment and continuing that work with the other two elementary schools, right? We're going to talk about the MPE roof we talked about before, and then we're going to talk about a follow conversation with respect to baseball, softball dugouts, condition assessment, and then we'll move forward, see if there's any questions at the end for the committee, and then open it up to you, Dr. Grande, to facilitate the other questions for other board members who are present with us today in the community who may have questions on the topic or another topic that you may be interested in sharing with the committee. So with that, I'll give the clicker to Mr. Maloney, and then you'll give us some updates on where we are with some of these projects.
Sure, we'll start out with the Kingfield scoreboard. The scoreboard is in place, it is running. KC Signs is setting up a training course for our staff. We're right now talking with the AD and core people that they would like to have trained, and we're setting up a day. We want to make sure we can get 1 day versus 2 or 3 days, but if necessary, they'll do a second or third training. Second on the list is the bleachers. Mr. Cirilli has applied for the building permits. Stadium Solutions, delivery schedule of the materials is tentatively scheduled to arrive on 12/11. I just got that update today versus the 8th. They're shipping on the 8th. And then the installation will occur once a permit is approved by the township. For signage, the remaining 2 monument signs for the high school and middle school are in fabrication. The middle school sign will be installed first, and the installation date will be towards the end of January. The high school sign base is a longer lead item. It's a faux brick to match the school, and that will be installed in the February timeframe. On 11/30, we had our first kickoff meeting with GKO and CRA for the condition assessment. The meeting was held at the Spencer House. CM3, myself, Nick Cirilli, a couple of the mechanical contractors were there, as well as Tom Rulli. And we went through the project itself. We're looking at receiving an updated drawings and cost for the high school project at our next meeting, which is scheduled on the December 13th at 10 a.m. at the Spencer House. So hopefully, the drawing I'm going to show you a little bit later in my slide deck is the previous drawing, but we had some discussions on where we might be able to save some square footage. The NPE roof, Mr. Cirilli and myself are working on putting together the bid package. We're just about there. We're going to look at an alternate, a TPO roof, as well as a TPA roof. The TPO carries a 20-year warranty, the TPA carries a 30-year warranty. We can compare the costs there and see what's more beneficial to the district, what's more fiscally responsible for the district to move forward with. At the baseball and softball dugouts, a meeting was held at the Spencer House. In attendance was the athletic director, the baseball and softball coaches, and myself. We discussed the three options that we previously brought to the board, or I should say this committee, not the board, a couple meetings ago. It was deemed by the group and approved that we would move with a CMU structure, which is a block structure at the base, and then stick build the rest of it on top of that block structure. Our goal is to try to get a split block that matches the concession stand, so it blends in with the whole team field area. As we move on, I'll talk about the CN3 status on a slide as we move forward. The tentative drawing, this is not the finalized drawing for the dugout. If you see in the bottom section of the drawing, there's a little square room for storage. That door is going to be facing the field versus facing the side with a gate in front of it. Improve the access for any equipment moving onto the field. The next to the man standing there in the top drawing will be the more or less the holder for the bats. Along the back, those little cubbies for helmets for our players. And I spoke about the NP roof before. The roof in question is the roof that's in the bubbled section. It's a built-up roof. The roof has a couple soft spots in it. One is the smaller red square that's in about the middle of the drawing. And then to the left, that larger red square is a patch that we just did about a week and a half ago, and that's over the bathroom. So we're crossing our fingers for heavy rain and nothing happens. A slide of the marquee sign, and what you see at the bottom of the base, that red section, it's going to be a brick, a faux brick for both the middle school and the high school. The middle school, we're going to try to depict and match the color of the facade in the front. High school, we're going to try to match that red brick. Now, this is the drawing that CRA presented to the facilities committee back in a while back. Yes, preliminary drawing. One of the major focuses we spoke about at the meeting in the bottom right-hand corner, which is a little bit of a tannish orange, is the section of the building for life skills. When we looked at this drawing the other day, it really didn't depict what we want for life skills. We really want to be able to set up a full classroom, however, also more or less an apartment setting where the students will be able to learn how to do laundry, cook, clean, bedroom, make their beds, whatever, so that it will give them a good heading towards moving out of our education setting. The left-hand side has two circles within a square, which is a wrestling area, and above that is an auxiliary gym. We asked CRA if they could combine that to reduce the cost and make it one area, which would be multi-purpose, which would be both wrestling, it could be volleyball, it could be basketball. It would be smaller than the major gym that we have. It might be in the area of maybe 8,000 square feet, 80 by 100, which would be a regulation full-size court. To the right of that is where the modulars exist today. They're going to look at that concept of the design there and possibly change it a bit, to see if we could get a little more classroom space than a lot of the hallway space. Another major section of the drawing is the library, the media center. That library.
Is that the blue?
By the, sorry.
Is that the blue of it, the library?
It's in the blue section.
The blue section.
Oh, the blue, I'm sorry, yes. Another portion of the non-negotiables is the pool, redoing the mechanicals of the pool, redoing the tile of the pool. And then, finally is the locker rooms, doing a full retrofit of the locker rooms and the shower sections of the building. And first and foremost, or I should say last on the list, is a turf field. And the turf field would be based on, if you're looking at the school and you're looking at the gymnasium on the left-hand side, on the lower section, most likely in the back off the road. But that will be determined through the architects when we start to work on that project. It will give the school a lot more opportunity, 24/7 usage of that field, especially if we put lights on it. Or I shouldn't say 24/7, but maybe till 10 o'clock. But, it'll give the opportunity to use.
Different community based where you come from, my friend, with
Yes.
these lights, okay?
Yes.
Okay. Your community welcome that with open arms, right? No.
A little different, a little different. Let's see. And for CM3 update, one of the major accomplishments on CM3 at the high school was that the shoulder boiler has been installed. The shoulder boiler is being utilized in times when it's not the winter, but you do need hot water. It's passed inspection through the state. It's up and running. We're working on a lot of the front end control systems at the schools. As you can see, we completed the middle school with the exception of a couple miscellaneous points. And miscellaneous points might be just a connection to one of the rooftop units or one of the water source heat pumps. And that should be done in the next couple of weeks. SRS, we just ran a new fiber line from the main building to the boiler room, which gives us the opportunity now to troubleshoot as well as view the operation of the boilers from our offices or a laptop or even at home. So if an issue occurs, we can get online through our building automation system and check what the issues are. Wes, there's no new updates there. NPE, the building is complete, with exception of the mechanical room controls, which is being integrated now by CM3. And lastly, CM3 has performed a condition assessment report on 3 of our buildings, which has brought to our attention a lot of deferred maintenance, which needs to be addressed. And as we embark on our strategic plan, I think it's extremely important that the board will move forward and engage CM3 to go and assess our other 2 buildings. If we want to really create a tight 3, 5, 10-year budget, it's going to be extremely important that we have this information in front of us. I would hate to try to do a 10-year capital plan without it, because evidently you would miss something. And you want to be able to have all that data there, whether it's an RTU, whether it's a boiler, a heat pump, whatever it may be, you want to capture all those costs. And the cost to do the last 2 buildings would be $50,600. Will the board have any questions? No. No.
Just a question, I know you shared this previously, but just to refresh our memories, the dugouts, the cost. I know it's not determined.
We're estimating that the dugout cost will come in around $35K per dugout, so about 140,000. We'll see when we get the documentation, we get the out for bid, and then there might be an opportunity to move some dollars around and value engineer them a little bit. Maybe reduce the amount of block, put more wood structure in it, but we'll see what the number is.
And that project, how does that connect? There's been other conversations about the baseball and softball fields, fencing at the baseball field, batting cages at the softball field. Where does this sort of fit into the kind of broader conversations about the.
The batting cages right now, we're gonna have a dual batting cage at the high school and a single batting cage over at NPE. They started the NPE batting cage and the preliminary design washed out. So I'm working with Nick right now to create a curbing that will go around the batting cage just on the outside of the sleeves that hold the batting cage holes. And then we'll fill that in with a granular mix. And then we save some of the astroturf from the old field and we'll put that in. So then we won't have to worry about weeds and it'll be a better playing surface for the students.
Those batting cages, they come down in the winter or do they stay up here?
The aluminum can stay up, the nets come down.
And I want to share that, as we think about, many of these projects in terms of trying to prioritize, what do we do first? Obviously in terms of what's moving forward, not all of them, but safety rises to the top in terms of some of the projects that we move forward to. So obviously the fencing was a high priority. Now it's the dugouts. Yes, they're absolutely needed as a part of softball and baseball, but they also presented some safety challenges and not having it as well, and not having batting cages created another set of challenges and potential injuries. So those three were interconnected around the big umbrella around safety among others.
And what would the process look like in determining if we put in another multi-purpose turf field in terms of exactly what makes the most sense of where that goes? Is that going back to our colleagues that work with us on the athletic plan and?
Well, I think ELA will be a big factor in helping us out, as well as having to look at what we have to do to remediate certain areas where adding fill, drainage, and all under that field to ensure that we get the life that we want out of that field.
Yeah.
And the usage out of it.
And I want to say this is really about what could it look like? And what would that mean? So there's no guarantees here, but since, Crouch Europe and Associates were designing, potentially some of the items we're looking for, one that raised to the top was, well, what did it look like if we did have another field? Maybe not something as, elaborate or sophisticated, but at least to give the opportunity for high school students not to always have to take that walk across the bridge, which then gives a lot more flexibility. But then when we start talking about that, we said, well, what would it look like if, and that's another conversation, since we're building it, could you extend the life of the schedule by adding ones?
Yeah.
And by allowing practice to occur a lot later, which means the athletic director would have a lot more flexibility in shifting around practices in order to do that. So to your point, Mr. Maloney, I think it is about architecturally and from a township perspective, what makes the best sense in terms of where to put it, and the cost effectiveness of that process.
All the work that ELA did demonstrated that you can't sustain what we're trying to do on the fields we have without thinking about some sort of multi-purpose.
It's very hard with the amount of usage that we have and the short windows that we have to try to plant seed twice a year.
Yeah.
With the extended use of the fields, you miss the fall window. So we're gonna try to hit it in the spring again and seed every field to try to get some growth before spring sports start.
Well, in the report, they did share the cost benefit analysis of an artificial turf and replacing, fully renovating and upkeeping your grass fields. And long term, it is a cost savings to have the artificial than it is to upkeep the grass, obviously along with the flexibility as well.
And if you invested heavily in grass, so you'd have to shut down the fields a lot.
It would be a long time, and it's possible, yeah, but that's also another impact.
Let me see if other board members who are in attendance have any questions or comments.
But first, I wanted to say thank you. It's nice to come to a facilities meeting and say, and see, this has been done, this is going to be delivered, these dates are here. and to have that as part of the presentation. So I really appreciate how much work has gotten done.
Thank you very much. I
yeah.
try to hold my team accountable for what they're supposed to be doing, and it's a lot of follow-up with the team members, ensuring that they do hit the deliverable dates that we put out there to have these tasks accomplished.
I appreciate that. Is that turf field in addition to that field hockey field? Is that a second field?
The field behind is like a practice football field.
Okay.
So the field hockey field will be up front, and we're thinking right now that the turf field would be behind. So it stays off the
Okay.
road and
Got it. Okay. Wow. That's a whole nother field. That's great. And then, CM3, if we were to go ahead with them, which I think is a great idea, but, do you know what their timeline looks like if we were to?
they'll have it done, before, probably in about 2 months. So before the need for us to really have that data that we can crunch to put into our strategic plan, they'll have it to us by then. They're a little smaller schools in the high school and the middle school, so they can get through that a little bit quicker.
Yeah, I'm glad to see the CM3 on there, the remaining two schools, and as the board we indicated, we really needed a comprehensive assessment of everything, this wasn't one. And we paid the price for that through not having preventative maintenance and so forth, so can't really embark on the kind of planning that we're talking about without having an assessment of the remaining schools as a board.
I appreciate the board's commitment.
Everything just wasn't one.
On that here.
For that, not having.
There's two of you, Ms. Walkman. We hear your voice.
It's just not having
Yes.
planning and talking about that.
For a second.
See if we have,
Are we in good shape now?
well, so,
Thumbs up,
Okay.
okay. I think we can move forward
Okay.
to public comment. I'm guessing we're gonna hear something about wrestling, maybe? Maybe.
I just have Leo Berry, Sice Lane. I just have a couple questions. You went so fast, I didn't catch it all.
I apologize.
That's all right. Second thing, you say bleachers, deliverable 12/11. What are we talking about, bleachers?
Oh, I'm sorry. It is the ADA ramps and the handrails.
Bingo. Signage. I missed the last meeting. Whatever happened to the roadside signs where the state said, no, you can't put them there?
Those are
Is
called
that-
monument signs.
Pardon me?
They're called monument
we can call them
signs.
marquee signs.
Well, marquee is on a building,
Okay.
monument is on the ground.
Oh.
But, sorry.
Okay. So we.
But they're in production now, and one will be installed in January, the other in
I
February.
got that. I didn't know when you said monument, I think they were going on the building, so I was
Okay.
confused. Okay, Over that, the dugouts. If you were talking about the artificial turf, and I thought I understood what field you were referring to, but then your last comment kind of threw me. So let me see. The field that they currently use, the very flat one that is parallel to Providence Road, you see it as you go down Providence Road
Yes.
towards Chester, it's on your right. That, as I understand it, lacrosse and field hockey uses. And it has a scoreboard, at least it did at one point, maybe it's on the football field, but any event. And I know it's got a watering source there. Is that the one that you're talking about?
We're thinking that we can utilize the field behind the field hockey field.
All right, now I'm confused again. Is that what you're calling, is the field hockey field, is that long one that?
Now, the field hockey field is up closest to Providence Road.
Correct,
I think
The practice football field is the one directly right behind it.
correct. So which are we putting turf on?
Well, that's gonna be up to ELA, but we're thinking that it would be the rear one versus the front one to keep that away from the road.
Why would we keep it away from the road?
A little bit of noise and some other things of traffic.
Puzzles me, but okay, you're the
Well,
expert.
the reality was this. We said, what would it look like for another field? Our architects are gonna take a look at the schematics and hopefully they'll give us, in their professional opinion, what could be the best place to put it, on that side of the high school.
Well, I'm just thinking, and again, you folks study this, I'm just thinking that football gets used from August to whenever,
Yes.
whereas field hockey, lacrosse is used in the spring and the fall. And, from what I understand, there's quite a few players there. So again, I'm just wondering if those people, who are primarily female, are getting short shift to the football.
No, not at all. The field would definitely be marked for all sports, just like King Field. So the field is not just being
Would be
used,
all sports?
the turf field would be marked for all sports.
I didn't think it was big enough, but you've studied it, that's all right. I got confused about the batting cages. You referred to the one at the middle school and the high school. I think of the baseball field that you and I have talked about as being the varsity field or that, for the high school. Is that what you mean by middle school? Because it's
No,
not closest to the middle school.
the dual cage is gonna be put down by the dog leg behind the high school, behind the modulars. It would be a double batting cage,
So,
which could be utilized for softball, it could be utilized for hardball. It's the same size cage.
so when baseball has its practices, they would go over to that batting
Now,
cage?
they still have the batting cage here at the middle school.
Oh, okay.
That's gonna still stay. It's not.
That's
moving.
called the middle school batting cage.
Yes.
Maybe we need to label it. That's all. I've taken up enough time.
That's all right.
Fine, thank you.
Dave Sartor, Morrison. I wanted to go back a month real quick, just so that I understood. Back on November 27th, at the legislative board meeting, you approved the previous month's capital reserve expenditures. It was part of like agenda item 13C that was approved. We spent $1,011,472.06. I was wondering what projects did that money cover? That spent money. Was that the turf field for football?
I would have to go back and look. I don't want to throw an answer out.
Close the numbers, so we'll get back from, we'll look for it.
Okay, this second turf field, the timeline is, I'm sorry, I'm gonna make you repeat that.
This timeline is gonna be part of the high school project, which is being assessed by CRA.
So it's not this current school year? Okay. Okay, that's all.
Oh, no, I wanted to make clear that, our projects are an attempt to identify what we believe to be needed renovations in particular areas of the building. So we're wrapping all of those projects into one, analysis to present to the board to say, here's what we've heard in terms of need. We had a meeting, today with our financial advisors to talk about what could that look like. But all of that is in the preliminary pre-planning phase in terms of long-term. The board has shared that they wanted a long-term vision, so we can begin planning fiscally for these particular projects.
Okay, then my other question, I think it's my last one for this. You projected $140,000 for the dugouts. Is that this current school year? Or do we plan to do that dugout work this school?
It would probably be, if we can do it, would be over the summer, but not for the spring sports.
So it's not a part of the current budget year. It would be next.
We would use capital reserves to support, funding of that, but we wanted to be very clear with the team that, between, conception, approval, and construction, that they will not see use of that for the spring season.
So it's next year.
Yes, yes.
Thank you.
Oh, yeah, can you answer that?
So what you see on the treasurer's report where it says less disbursements of a little over $1 million,
Yeah.
that included the transfer for the Giza money. Remember we talked in the
But
finance.
the diesel was the one below that.
Right, so the less this, remember, so when we talked about in the finance committee meeting, when the district received those funds, they were deposited into the capital account. What you see on the treasurer's report, it reflects any revenues and any disbursements coming out. So because we had to move that money to its own account, that is considered a disbursement from the capital account. So while the less disbursements for the amount was a little over $1 million, 974,000 of that was moving that money to the Giza account. So if you look at the Giza account on the treasurer's report, you'll see $974,000 in receipt going in.
Right.
So the actual disbursements from a check standpoint from the capital account was only about $50,000.
So we took from the capital reserve, $1 million and moved it over to the geese.
It was a little over $1 million in disbursements, but 974,000 was just a transfer.
Okay.
Yes,
So it was really a small.
it was about 50,000, well, not even, about
So it was a small
36,000.
amount of money.
It was about $36,000 of actual checks issued from the capital account.
And then the $2.5 million that was added receipts.
So that was money we took from the reserve to free up cash to make that transfer. And then the rest of the money, that about 1.5, is sitting in
still
cash
Okay,
for the upcoming expenditures that we have.
thank you.
We have had a moment.
May I ask another question
Do
about the
you mind if I
dugouts?
see if anyone else?
Yeah, okay, but it's
And then
on
we'll
the
come-
dugouts and it's on finance, but go ahead.
It was about dugouts.
Yeah, well, a few years ago, there was a fundraising effort. Last I checked, the foundation had about 10 grand. I contributed sizably to that. With the guy who took the money and he said, oh, it's in the foundation. Are we using, is that disappeared? Should I get on his case or is it going towards the dugouts?
We have not received, any funds, but we've been made aware that prior to my arrival, there has been tremendous interest in fundraising opportunities and that, the organization was ready to help the district support in its request. So
Should I call the guy?
if you'd like to, absolutely, and help us out, we appreciate it.
I'd be
But
happy.
that is a follow-up for, Linnell Mosley in terms of that as well.
Okay, well, I'll give him a call and find out. Thank you.
Other comments or questions?
Okay, why don't you go? So I'm Chelsea Berger. I don't necessarily have a public comment, but, these are my three girls. This is their first year wrestling. Haven has its first ever girls wrestling team this year. There have been a few girls who have wrestled for Strathaven, but this is the first year that there is an all-girls team. It's amazing. I have two boys also who both wrestle, so I have a lot invested in it. But they came up with a speech about, why it's important that we focus on getting a new wrestling facility. Awesome. Yeah, whatever you like. Loud up there, speaking to
Hi, thank you for having us here tonight to share our concerns with the wrestling facility. My name is Collins and I'm Jesse. We're members of the first ever community youth wrestling girls team. Girls have wrestled at Shenton before, but we've never had an all-girls team. We have about 20 girls on our team this year, and 30 through 6 teams. We've watched our older brother wrestle for about 5 years now, and the number of girls at tournaments keeps getting bigger. This past weekend, we wrestled at a first tournament. I even came in third place. We moved to Wallingford from a different state. We moved to Wallingford from a different state because our mom lived in Super here, and she knows best for me and us to grow up. Now that we're here, we can see why. Strathaven has so many things that other schools don't offer, like great music programs, girls in one, yoga club, crochet club, and really great sports beyond other languages. Imagine how many things we get to do when we get in middle school and high school. Coach Anna makes practices a lot of fun because we get to listen to Taylor Swift songs while we teach them. We know that there will be a lot of our friends who want to play and dream of isn't too much what it is. You can hardly fit in the room that we have now, and we won't be able to fit as we grow up and more girls will. Already, it's hard to practice without bumping into people. Our coaches are all volunteers that want to help the high school team win. They practice it so many times a week because of how small the rooms are. If we had a bigger room, we could spend more time doing other things because we wouldn't have this many practices. It isn't just field wrestling. Our older brother has a bigger group than us and we have a hard time practicing with this. He made it to states last year. His friends are really good too. They keep getting better and they need a bigger space to practice because when they're all the size of high school, they won't be able to get better because it isn't enough room to go to that class. They don't want to start giving the school that doesn't have processing, especially when it has so much else to talk about. They only have a few more years before they'll be in high school and by then we'll probably have a much bigger girls team. So we are asking for a bigger wrestling room to get better and learn and make our community better. Do you want to be a part of this or do you want to watch it? When you think you're done, you're going to be done. This is how we feel about girls wrestling.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, and we would welcome if you wanted to give us a copy of that. We can give that to the rest of the board as well and make it part of the record, but we do appreciate that, and thank you very much. We're very mindful around the decisions we make as it relates to student voice. A lot of time, adults believe they're making decisions in the best interest of children, but don't give the space for young adults to actually say, this is what it is that we need. So thank you for coming to the meeting. Thank you for sharing your thoughts. We really want to provide the space in order for you to maximize your skill and enjoy that and be the best that you can be. And obviously a lot of that has to do with the physicality of the location, right? So we are working really hard to put together a long-term plan. We wish we can do it next year, we can do the year after that, but part of the work we're doing right now is how do we develop a long-term plan so that we can get ready for you when you make that transition and you have the space that you need. So thank you very much for your voice and congratulations. Good job on your competition and what you're doing. Awesome. Yeah. Yes.
So I'm Chris Hanlon, I'm on Academy Road, but, so they did a better job and they're a pretty good example of like why, girls are better at boys. So I've been coaching boys for a long time. And Chelsea and I came a year and a half ago and no boys would come to the speech, so they did it on their.
So you're in trouble because you have to follow them now. So-
I always said like a poor man version of whoever. So anyway, so we came in, May of 22, that's when we came, and I come a few times, and I appreciate all of you and all the work you're doing, and I appreciated shortly thereafter that you started to connect on studies. So I don't want to come across as ungrateful, because I know you're doing really hard work. So 2 points, so with the high school, like they're at a pretty severe disadvantage, so I think I said this before, they have by far smallest room essentially. I worked in Philly, I ran a nonprofit that went into city schools that were, Overbrook High School is about 100 years old. I had a way bigger room there than Strathaven does. And they're pretty competitive. The problem is when you have a kid that's advanced and you have a kid that's a first year wrestler, you can't differentiate at all. Because the room is crazy small. It's like a box. It doesn't even have a full size manual there. So Tony Giuliano was fantastic at those, how he gets creative. So he splits the room, does all kinds of things, but it certainly needs the progress. When I came a year and a half ago, we had 40 some kids on the youth program. The most they've ever had is 7. We have 140. That's K to 6. That's not including 7th and 8th graders. Like, I spend too much time on these things. I volunteer for a lot of sports, but we have the most per capita of youth wrestlers of any state, any team in Southeast PA compared to high school seats. So we've never had that here. So you're gonna have an influx of kids coming in. At the current moment, if you have a girls program, you just can't serve them. Like you just can't. So I know you're doing really important work. I will impress upon you though, that in 3 years, you will be woefully underprepared to serve what amounts to now, like 8% of our elementary school population. And I've never, like, I've coached girls who have been part of club, the Beach Streets, we had a girls group. But my daughter said she wanted to wrestle, so I got started. The Burger girls came out and girls just keep signing up. Like, and this is just second to fifth graders and we have in sixth grade. This will explode and we just won't be able to serve them. So, and I will, the other thing I'll put out there is that, adding to a building and doing all that is extremely expensive. Like, I've been involved with different school districts in South Jersey when I was with the streets with Camden and Gloucester City, because we sponsored them. They couldn't afford to do that, so they did a pole barn. They found a spot, they erected it, they did it like up to code, but they didn't try to attach it to an old structure that had to be wired in. And they did it very like reasonably priced relative to, it was, we could talk about, one that was about 2 basketball, I mean, this is 10 years ago, price has gone up, but it was 2 basketball courts, bleachers, bathrooms, all up to code and everything. They were tied in the parking and everything, and it was $750,000, and it is a beautiful facility. Again, South Jersey prices are different here, land has already come by, but I just encourage like, maybe think outside the box if you need to do this, like, you might not have to adapt it to the building, because if you do, that's 6 years down the road, you completely lost the chance of serving these girls, because they won't have a girls program. And Pennsylvania now has 180 high schools that are PIAA girls teams that will go out to Hershey and they'll wrestle with the boys. Iowa, which is a preeminent college program now, is a D1 program. It's an emerging sport at NCAA level, it doesn't Olympic sport. So these girls will be cut off with an opportunity that's legitimate. It's easier for a girl to get a scholarship in college to wrestle than it is for a boy, but not if you don't have a high school program. So anyway, less eloquent, more boring, but that's my pitch to kind of back on. So I appreciate all of you and appreciate you, Leslie.
Thank you.
I'm Courtney Page, I'm from Rockland. But I just have 2 comments, 1 comment, 1 question. So I'm going back again to where are you putting this turf field? Because what it sounds like is that it's going on top or cutting off part of the softball field. And of course, I'm a softball parent, so that's my concern.
Yeah, it wouldn't do that. No, we haven't.
That's our outfield.
Well, what I want to say is we've asked the architects to help us think about what would a turf field look like on the high school campus. I will let them come back and tell us here, knowing our schedule, knowing our sports, knowing who plays on those fields, where the best location would be to optimize that process. So I'd rather defer to them when I said, hey, what would it look like on the opposite side of this campus to have a particular field? So we wouldn't, I wouldn't in good conscience put a field there that then eliminates an opportunity for other sports.
I'm just curious, because you keep
Yeah.
talking about it being on the other side of the field hockey.
Well,
And
nix
that would-
that.
Right,
I
okay.
can't visualize that. All I know was for me, maybe, my colleague can visualize exactly where the fields are. I still have a, issue of what field is where, across the street. What I do know is, what would it look like with our existing footprint, at the high school where we currently practice to put a turf field on that side of the property? I will let ELA, I will let the architects kind of look through that, the engineers to determine what is the best place. I do know that, the field all the way in the back, closest to our parking, has a lot of drainage, challenges, back there. That would have been optimal because parking is available versus having it closer to South Providence and then creating another set of schematics that would require, if it's there, you need some place for people to park in terms of that process. So I want to say that if we are creating confusion by stating a particular area, I want to clarify that our ask was, what would it look like to put a turf field on the high school side, and what would be the best place for it?
Yeah, but just the way I'm listening, that's what it was sounding like to me. So I just wanted to, and I hear you.
Yes.
My other comment would be, I'm supporting the dugouts.
Yeah.
So I just want them to happen. I just want something for our girls, because it's pretty pitiful. And then if you look at what is available to the other schools in our district, we probably rank last. And I know that softball is not one of those sports that it's flocked to, but it would sure be neat to be able to have our girls be able to hold their heads up high when these other teams come, because right now they're sitting on a bench
Mhm.
and it's pretty crap. And it's embarrassing. And the girls don't care.
Thank you.
Thank you. Adjourn this.
With that,
When you were going over the proposed blueprint of the school, you said something about another one of the non-negotiables. What were the non-negotiables?
It wasn't 9, it was 7.
Or things that were categorized as, critical.
there was a long list of items that people said they would like. We decided to say, well, is it a want or is it a critical need? And, out of that long list came a shorter set of, well, these are really critical. Let's put together a schematic in terms of what would that look like. One of those critical was, hey, what would another turf field look like? The other was the modulars have been in the district for a very long time. We need to move them over. We said that, the media center / library needs to be renovated. We said the pool, considering the district has had a history of wanting to renovate that pool for quite some time. In addition, the locker rooms was also part of, we got to do something about the locker rooms. And then how do we amplify and improve our life skills program currently with where that is? And what would it look like, because we're so stretched for space, instead of the preliminary drawing they gave us a long time ago, could we just make a smaller gym to be able to save costs, but also provide the same level of support in terms of training? We don't need a gym that sits 3,000 people. Well, it'd be nice, but in terms of affordability, that's not really practical for us. Where we can have some bleachers where parents can sit and others can watch a game, yes, but do we need an area for 3,000 or can we afford it? Probably not. So we asked for what would an auxiliary space look like in order to support some of exactly what our young athletes shared with us earlier today.
Were all of the different colors out there, they were the non-negotiables that you guys decided on, and they're going to be your hoping?
I don't know if they reflect those. I do know that that was the original schematic.
Okay,
Because we don't have their new drawing, we wanted to give a visual, but I didn't want to confuse the community to say that that is exactly that. But that is from an old schematic, dating back to when we originally presented.
okay.
Yeah. But we're expecting, Crabtree Roebuck and Associates to bring us a new schematic, which we will bring to the board, very soon. Yeah. Thank you. With that, we adjourn the meeting and then we'll take a break for our finance meeting. Dr. Grande, I'd like to proceed with the December sixth, Finance Committee meeting.
Yes, please.
All right, thank you very much. Welcome everyone to the December sixth Finance Committee meeting. At this time, I would like to take roll call. Dr. Grande?
Here.
Here. Mr. Miller? Here. Here. And Mr. Henry? Here. Thank you very much. The chairs did have an opportunity to review the November first, 2023 minutes. Can I get a motion to approve those minutes? So moved. Can I get a second? Second. Motion passes. Thank you. At this time, I wanted to talk about our agenda and a couple of the items we have around our department updates, our Act One resolution. Then I'll give you some brief follow-up with bus patrol. This is our third conversation around bus patrol. I know there's been conversation around privacy and what those videos and retention. So I did share with some boards some additional privacy information that is attached to all the documents that are available in board docs. Quickly go through a couple of contracts. There's one contract that I just added today. It is under board solicitor review. We're gonna send that, but I just want to give you a heads up that we're looking into that, but you don't have a copy of that. But you will momentarily once our solicitors review that. So with that, I'll pass it to Ms. Mosley to begin the departmental updates.
Thank you. So the first update I want to give is relating to phase one of our 24-25 budget. It was a very eye-opening process as an incoming person, just learning more about how the district operates, policies and procedures, the practices that are put in place when it comes to creating a budget. So that really allowed us to look at how the district currently is existing, especially with implementation of a strategic plan and wanting to create a capital, a 5-10-year capital plan. We know those are things we're going to have to budget for. Let's look at the existing practices. One of the benefits thus far of phase one has allowed the district to really look at the coding of revenues and expenditures. The chart of accounts that PDE, they usually update them about maybe twice a year. The most recent update was actually in August of 23. So in this process, we were able to notice that some of the revenues and expenditures as they have been quoted here were not up to date as often as the district, as the state updates them. That's important to reflect, because when we're talking about actually budgeting for certain items, if we're improperly coded, it can make it look like a specific expenditure item. We may need to budget more in a certain area that we don't need to. So again, that has really been a good eye opener for this process. It also allowed us to review existing contracts. Putting this all together for Dr. Marseille has been a process. We were actually looking at every existing contract. We're talking about identifying the district's non-negotiables and contractual obligations and reviewing some of our contracts where we can identify some area of cost savings. And just some contractual practices. Some of the contracts with the districts have been existing for a very long time, not knowing when's the last time they've been reviewed. This has given us the opportunity to say, hey, can we go back to this company and try to see, can we get a lower cost, or should we try to maybe go out to bid or solicit some other companies to try a better cost saving measure? So this has given us that opportunity to do that as well. And like I said, identifying the district's non-discretionary and discretionary expenses. So when we talk about going forward, implement a strategic plan and building even just a 3 to 5 year budget, we can identify that we know certain costs will be reoccurring, exactly how much that will be, and then going forward each year what that additional cost will be. And then I did identify to help determine the funds available for WSEA negotiations. The reason that is highlighted by itself, when we talk about a single cost expenditure increase for 24-25, that would probably be the highest cost expenditure. So that's why we wanted to identify that separately. We know this is something going in that we would need to make sure we have enough funds to properly offer our teachers. Budget planning phase 2 is relating to implementing the strategic plan. So we know that the board provided some specific deliverables as it relates to the strategic plan. This gave us an opportunity to identify the costs associated with implementing those and ensuring that we're staying on timeline. Everyone had until December 1st to submit those. It's up here, I'm looking at my computer. Everyone had to December first, so, the business office has been working to compile that information to present to Dr. Marseille, so he can make a presentation to the board as it relates to what those deliverables were for 23-24 as well as 24-25. Update on our payroll personnel, we have discussed the struggles we've had with that, but we did, make an offer to someone that, with significant amount of experience. Right now, we're just waiting to hear back and collect all, the information as it relates to our references. And hopefully by the end of the year or very early in January, we'll have that person on board. Given what has happened since January with that position, I've been working with HR to reach out to other school districts. We're actually trying to create a training program or plan for that person as it relates to e-finance. As we spoke before, if you have not worked in the school district, you have really no experience with e-finance software system. So prior to, upon her appointment, that's the plan, to make sure she's just acclimated with e-finance first before we actually get her involved with the process. As it relates to the audit, I know this has been long coming, but we have made some significant process as it relates to that. We have completed all the necessary journal entries provided by our hired audit prep consultant. Remember, the district did hire Tom Josiah, given, like I said, a significant transition in the business office. We knew there was a lot of things that we had to review, investigate, and clean up. And we have, like I said, completed all of his recommendations. He is doing a final review this week, actually, of everything to ensure all of the recommendations that he provided, those journal entries have been created. And then also we can identify our June 30th, our year-end balances for each fund. Because again, we would need that final information to accurately start this fiscal year. And then once we finish that information, we'll submit the rest of it to the auditors. Everything that they have requested from us, we have submitted as of November 14th, including the testing samples for accounts payable and payroll, which are the two larger items that they request from us. All of that information has already been submitted. So once we receive the final go through with Tom Josiah, and we'll submit those balances to the auditors. That's where it's more of a waiting game for them to review that information, request any additional information they need from us. So like I said, we are, given where we are in a really good spot. They have not reached back out to us after we submitted everything that they requested, which is very good. If you know how audits work, usually when you submit things to the auditors, there's many follow-up questions for additional information. So the fact that we have not heard back from them for additional information since November 14th is very optimistic. And then, like I said, we're just waiting for any additional requests that they might have for us. And as it relates to contract negotiation, all of the information that they have requested, except for the AFR, was submitted. The district did receive an extension from the state that the AFR is usually due by November 30th, but we were given the extension to December 31st, which all school districts are allowed to request with the circumstances. Given the transition with us and still working on the audit, it didn't make sense for the business office to complete the AFR, and then once the audit is finalized, to then have to redo that whole reporting. So we did submit that request to the state and they gave it to us. So once our audit is completed, then we will be able to go in and finalize the AFR, and then we will provide that to WSEA as well. And then I will be meeting with Dr. Marseille. That date is not accurate, but I will be meeting with him after we compile phase 1 and phase 2 to get that exact dollar amount that we have, just as it relates to that part of the budget. So we can really determine, like I said, what the district can fiscally do. Also in consideration with, we do have strategic plan and capital projects that we also have to consider. And then the last one is for the Act 1 resolution. So PDE did calculate the base index for 24-25 is 5.3%. Wallingford did not have an adjusted index for 24-25. January 4th is the deadline to adopt a resolution indicating if your district will or will not increase taxes more than the index. And January 9th is the deadline to submit that to PDE. So it will be on this board meeting, which is December 18th, that we will be making a recommendation to not raise taxes higher than the index.
Thank you. And then I wanted to give a follow-up to the board with regards to the conversation we're having on bus patrol. And I think one of the latest requests from the board to come back with additional information is to the extent of their retention policy, the extent in which, who has the right to those videos, who's able to access those videos, who owns those, and the terms of agreement. We've been, having preliminary conversations with our solicitor, and obviously, Bus Patrol, does, ensure that they're following all state and federal guidelines with regards to, the retention, the transfer of data and who gets to see that. Specifically, those data points where we are very interested, not only just the arm control, but replacing the interior cameras as well, right? And that also comes free of charge, in terms of, installing brand new camera system in all 36 of our buses. So what we, would like for, this committee is, I'd like to move forward with, engaging our solicitors in a formal conversation with Bus Patrol to look over those agreements. So I can come back to you and provide you with, a recommendation to move forward based on the review of our solicitors. But I think, all the reasons we talked about the last 3 times, why we think this is an important, investment, for us, and legislation that allows this to happen. I know that, a previous district where I was at just recently, installed Bus Patrol, and in a short amount of time, they've captured a significant, amount of violators, in a short time that they've had that. And you know that, the relationship with law enforcement and the percentage of those proceeds does go to offset the cost of, the equipment, which is why Bus Patrol is able to offer, their services free of charge. So I will be bringing back to you, a thorough recommendation per review of our solicitors with, request to move forward with Bus Patrol. With that, I wanted to say that we have, 3 contracts. The 4th is I just added, and just wanted to give an update, even though the board does not have that. You know that we have Schoology Scholars, you know it's a significant strategic initiative in terms of a learning management system. There has been a significant request for additional professional development days. So you did agree to the original contract, but after conversation with the ed team, conversation with our staff, there's like, we could use some additional days of training. You can't say no to that for that process. So, I will be presenting an additional $6,500 for that. That will come out of the curriculum budget to have the funds for that. We also, are working with Power School in connection to Schoology to provide additional text help, resources as well. So that's an additional $1,000, in addition to what you had approved earlier, but we're gonna spend additional, $1,100. And then we talked about this at the facilities meeting, where we want to continue with the remaining 2 buildings to collect all that information as well. The contract that I'll be sharing with the board that's under solicitor's review, in Friday's update, is an opportunity for us to work with a company, right here in Pennsylvania called Real Fire Media. What Real Fire Media does is they help organizations brand their message. So what they will come in and they will conduct, a video production and spend the next several months in our district capturing footage about our strategic plan, capturing footage about our schools, and then they put together these 3 to 4 minute highlight reels that speak to who we are, what we want to become, and that is part of the work that we were talking about. What is it that distinguishes Wallingford-Swarthmore School District from others? How do we highlight the wonderful things happening in the district? And how do we communicate that through audio and visual? So I've been talking to Ms. Riley about that. We do have, though, when we created a budget for this year, we didn't think about Real Fire. We did put a line item that says we need more ways to promote and support the district's message. So we do have the funds sitting in the budget, so it's not new money, in terms of that process. we just identified Real Fire as the company that can really help and support us that. So we're gonna send you that. I'm gonna send you, some of the work that they've done. You will be impressed. I'm saying that right now because the videos they've done for other school districts are extremely impressive in terms of telling the story of the organization in 3 to 4 minutes. Because we know that you have 3 to 4 minutes to capture the interest of individuals. I don't want to relate it to a TikTok video, but right? But the attention span is really that in terms of giving core messages, and we'll be sharing that with you as well. With that, that concludes our presentation, and I'll open the floor for you, Dr. Grande, to begin questions.
So you'll be making a TikTok video yourself?
Not me. Oh,
No?
I will not. Only good-looking people are gonna be in this video. All the students are gonna be the ones highlighted.
Bob?
Yeah, so I got a bunch of probably a bunch of new guy questions.
That's all right.
First, I really like to hear what's been going on with the budget. As a new person, I'm sad that it's new process. It feels like something that maybe should have been in place before. So when you say leading to a 3 to 5 year budget model, are we currently in a 1-year budget model?
In my experience, yes.
Yeah, okay, so I couldn't endorse that more to move to a 3 to 5 year budget model. Yeah, so that's a little surprise. And so the financial audit that is leading us to making these good decisions, I think, is that not normal practice? We don't usually have an audit of our work
No,
per
so
year?
you do have a single financial audit, every year. And in addition to the annual financial report, which is a PDE requirement due to the state. There's been a delay in the district's ability to produce the financial data. And we can contribute to that since I know in January, the business manager, the payroll person and the account supervisor, which is about 50% of your business office, were separated from working with the district. And for the remainder of the 6 months of the fiscal year, 50% of your fiscal year, we had interim business manager as well as external consultants. Which is all technically outside help.
Yeah.
So you did not have a person, internal person handling the day-to-day and when the interim business manager came in, it was more so primary focus of finalizing the budget for this year and also the support union of contract negotiations. So just naturally, things fell through the cracks.
Yes.
So when we're talking about finalizing an audit, there was a lot of legwork that should have been happening on a day-to-day basis from January to June that we are currently doing now while handling current year fiscal day-to-day operations. So again, we still have to maintain and do our daily work while addressing past due problems. So has led to the delay. And also we have to conduct some of these investigations without anyone who can actually speak to what happened. So just to give you an example, I'm gonna look at a number, say, where did this deposit come from? What's the rationale? And I don't have anyone here that really can speak to it. So now we have to do some more due diligence and digging. And again, that's just time consuming. So no, it's not ideal to be in this situation and not have the audit done, but given what the legwork that we've had to do, doing that and maintaining day to day, I am proud to say where we are.
Oh, no
It's
doubt.
not ideal, but
No doubt.
the best we can do given we're in transition.
And putting the focus on the categorization of the funds, I think is huge for the reasons that you point out. And I find it even more impressive then that not only are you taking a look back doing day to day, but the way I read it, you're also now thinking about the future and mapping that to the strategic plan and making sure that the budget is a reflection of the priorities of the strategic plan, which I think is exactly where like the district should be.
We are dead handling past, present, and future. All of this.
Yeah, it's pretty impressive. And then I guess my last question, what was the process of going with Real Fire Media? There's lots of.
Yeah, so it's a professional service. So we went out and solicited 3 organizations who do this work. We also took a look at, do we have anyone internally? Could you use video production students to help facilitate things of that nature. 3 organizations came, to the top in terms of helping that. Real Fire's ability and the product that they shared and the type of messages that they, capture in video really impressed us. We also, like Real Fire because when we went back to them and said, we can't afford this. You're a new, we want to be a partner with you. We don't want to spend this much money to do this work. What are ways in which you can help us out? And they significantly reduced, their price, in order to, help us think differently about that. So, their quality of work, really shine in terms of the videos that they were able to produce. Yeah.
Just a couple of questions. Dewan, you mentioned that you, got the extension for the AFR from November to December 31st. How do you feel about that December 31st day? What's the confidence level?
I feel pretty confident, what we will by that time, at least have a rough draft of our financial numbers from our auditors, where we can complete that requirement to submit it to the state. Anytime there are any fiscal changes to your audit, the state does allow you to go in and update that. You just have to submit the preliminary, by December 31st. So again, I do feel confident we will at least have some rough draft auditing numbers so where we can complete that requirement.
Okay, thank you. And, Dr. Marseille, thank you for clarifying that both the Schoology contract and the Real Fire one were already budget line items. That helps me and know that that was already, that's money that you already.
Yeah, we had earmarked dollars to say we wanted to find a way to tell the story of the district.
Yeah.
We didn't know how we were gonna do that, but we knew it was an important piece of that. And we just happened to identify the vendor that, rose to the top.
It helps me as on the board to know that you had money for something.
Yes.
You're just now applying.
Yes.
It wasn't new spend. And I'm wondering if we can use those videos. I'm sure you've seen the work, so you know what's I have in my mind. I know we're planning on some strategic planning rollout meetings. It would be nice to have a cool video.
That's part of that.
Would that be,
So
I
they're
my
gonna
question,
come
would that be part of
And
it?
take a look at our 5 pathways. How are they gonna create videos that really capture the sense of what the district is doing and the story of the district? So their videographers will come, throughout the year, capture, events and experiences, go to some of the buildings, capture events and experiences. So it's a long theatrical process in terms of being able to capture enough video for them to go back and do what they really do, which is we have hours and hours and hours of video. How do we condense it to this 2.5 minute documentary about why this is the district that needs where you need to be at? Yeah.
So do we have a price tag on that yet?
Oh, I'm sorry. It's 23, not to exceed $23,000. Yes.
I just have a comment to make. Yeah, actually, I expected a bigger number. No.
It was bigger. We just said, please work with it.
And I'm working there, you that expected.
We don't need 60 videos. We want to be able to see what the product looks like. Yes.
The bus patrol, since I had raised a lot of the questions initially, I don't have any questions. I just want to follow up with a comment to say that I have had the opportunity to spend some time digging into this more deeply. I support moving forward. I think that the district does have the ability to put in very strong privacy provisions into our contracts with bus patrol. So I think what the committee is being asked to do is simply suggest to the administration that they move forward with begin negotiating a contract with bus patrol, that they can then bring that contract back to the board. So this isn't the last stop along the way. Yeah, I was just gonna say the same. And I think, like, from a privacy principles perspective, I think, it's important that we have strong language in there around data retention and strong language in there that there's no use beyond the intended use. That, if it's cameras on the bus, there really shouldn't be any use for that other than for the district's internal purposes. And for the cameras outside the bus, it should just be for the purposes of managing this program, and law enforcement. And beyond that, and FERPA comes into play as well in providing additional safeguards. And so I'm very supportive of the program and look forward to seeing how we can make sure those protections are in there. Other board members, any questions or comments, Mary Jo?
Looking back at the, calculated base index, that's the highest I've ever seen. Is that right? Is that?
Yes.
Okay, right. And what, can you just help me remember what it was last year?
I was 4.1 last year,
So, yeah.
and the district had an adjusted 4.8.
Maybe
Thank you.
just, could you just remind the community what Act One is based on, roughly, not in detail, but what is it meant to represent?
It's based off,
I just sent, what help? I just sent a link. on-
There you go.
Excellent.
okay,
Here, you want, okay. I didn't mean to interrupt.
No.
I just happen to have it right in front of me.
You're
but the-
fine.
Okay. Okay. All right, so Act One is the state's measure for determining property tax increases justified by wage inflation. Each district's index is calculated separately for each fiscal year, consists of two parts, the base index and the district adjustment. The statewide base index is the average of two things. One, the percentage changes in wages statewide, and two, the percentage changes in school employee compensation costs nationwide. So the base index reflects a rough measure of the rate of change in compensation costs. And then if you're eligible for an adjusted index, as you said, Ms. Mosley, we're not this year, but if you are, the adjusted index is the base index plus an adjustment for lower wealth districts. And that adjustment is based on the district's relative wealth, with the lowest wealth districts receiving the largest upward adjustment to the base. I just, as
Thank
we
you
were.
for happy to have that open.
Since we're in
Yeah.
that season, I just actually emailed the link to this Q&A to all of the board members,
Great,
because I
thank
think
you.
it's very helpful to frame.
Appreciate that.
It comes up, the question comes up every year. So.
All right, that was yours. Did you have anything other than showing off your?
No, it's, I had to read it, it's not here, but, I just, on that, was it Real Fire or whatever?
Yeah.
So I was on the pathway, the community, community
Pathway.
communication, that one.
Pathway, yeah.
Yes, that pathway. And I know that, one of the things that we heard, from the community and the audits, and the thing that pathway and our group really focused on was how do we communicate more effectively, just generally, not only on the strategic plan, but how do we connect more effectively with folks in our community who may not have students in our schools right now, and parents and alumni and so forth. And so as we think about what they can do for us, and I was surprised too, that's kind of, I know all money is important and all spending is important. That's for what we're talking about. That's kind of a drop in the bucket from what I'm used to. That's like an hour's worth of work in my world. I'm anxious to see how that might be able to help us communicate the strategic plan, and just kind of like in doing so, wrap our arms around helping to help our community understand how their taxpayer dollars are actually being spent.
Yeah.
So maybe going a little broader and not deep and broad in terms of what we're accomplishing.
Well, we said we wanted to, the commitment was, we wanted to be better storytellers.
Yeah.
We wanted to be able to create the condition where we're telling our story, because somebody else, if you don't tell your own story, somebody else will.
That's right.
And how do you brand that? How do you create it in a way that is 22nd century, 21st century, in which media uses to kind of highlight what we do and why we do it. And this company is known for helping organizations tell their story and brand their story. Yeah.
Jeanette?
I have a question about, the Acts One resolution. It says that administration will submit recommendations not to raise the tax rate higher than the index. and the index is 5.3%.
The resolution,
Wasn't last year like 4.1?
that is correct. The resolution is a formality. We're not saying we're going to 5.3. That is the base index. So we legally have to make a resolution saying we're not going to increase beyond the base index set by the state.
Wasn't there, or am I thought I read somewhere that there's a lawsuit about school districts taking tax revenue from property owners.
Lower Marion.
Isn't there a lawsuit?
I think that's the Lower Marion School District where someone alleges that they taking more than they budgeted, needed and stockpiling or doing whatever. Yeah, you're partly right. I may be
The
oversimplifying.
Lower Marion with the issue with respects to the continued raising of taxes to index when they felt that there were reserves and fund balance that would be able to help offset some of those costs.
I think that.
I'll just add that, so school districts all have to go through this process once a year where the state sets, they say, here's what Act One is, and school districts have two choices. You essentially agree at this point in time that we are passing a resolution and say, we will not exceed this amount. If you don't want to pursue that path, then you're saying, we'll go to referendum to go above that. And so that's the fork in the road is, are we living within Act One? It's not to say we're going to raise to Act One, but we're living at or below that in the next budget.
Okay, because I'm still trying to learn how the finances work. So how can you, so you're not projecting what the tax increase could
No,
be
you're just
because
committing
there
to
isn't a
not,
budget.
you're just
to-
committing to not go above that.
Yeah.
That's the commitment that's being made.
Because if you're going to go above it, you have to actually go to a voter referendum.
And it's a whole different, it's a different process, that in a different timeline from the state if you are exceeding the index.
There's actually a link to this explanation and what I just sent to all the board too. It
Okay.
covers this process.
So I know that I only get one question, but I'm stretching out my question.
Just keep putting a comma after.
Yeah.
So, how do we, when are taxpayers notified of the increase in the tax?
So,
Most of it.
yeah, so it's three-step process. This first step here is we're committing to not go above this amount. Then, well, there's more than three steps, but then we spend time here in finance where we'll begin to talk about possibilities of what the budget might look like. Then the board will have to vote on a proposed final budget. And that is not passing the budget, that is, here's what we are saying is likely to be the final budget. And then after that, there's a vote on the final budget, which is what is the ultimate vote for the budget and the tax increase. So so this resolution, then everything in the committee, then the board with the proposed final budget, and then the board again with the final budget.
Okay. So that's enough for that. Now, with bus patrol
Yes.
and going into a contract with them, is there a way to write formally that it is not going to exceed a certain amount?
In terms of dollars?
Yes.
Well, bus patrol, the way bus patrol works as part of legislation is that they are able to offset their costs by receiving a percentage of the the tickets that are given for those who violate, and go around buses or speeding. So they've worked out with, the state and local law enforcement where if Wagner Marseille was caught on bus patrol driving around, a stop arm, I'm making this number up, it's a $350, ticket. Bus patrol, working with law enforcement would send, they have an AI system that analyzes. Then it goes to, a human being to validate that indeed that is the case. Then after that, it is then sent to the police department, who then the police department reviews that video, authenticates that that's exactly what happened, and then they submit a summons to, that individual. That individual pays the summons, and a percentage of that payment goes to bus patrol. So the district, has, no cost to that. All the districts who, decide to move forward with bus patrol are not paying any expenditures, even from the maintenance to the removal of your old equipment to the removal of their new. If they update cameras every 3 or 4 years, if we decide that's what we want to continue to do, then they will replace those as well.
So are you talking about only signing a 1-year contract so that even though it doesn't cost the district anything, you're saying, but, if we're not getting that many people going around buses,
We have high-tech AI equipment on our buses. That's benefit enough, even if, we're not getting, for example, Wallingford-Swarthmore, and I'll tell you that our buses travel outside of our community, right? So they go everywhere. So let's say in the first year, which we will give and get data, they collected 0 violators, right? There is no charge to the district regardless of that, right? Their analysis has revealed that, because there's so many offenders out there, that they're able to provide this service, to districts without the district initiating costs to purchasing the cameras, maintaining the cameras, and things of that nature. So,
and that's for the life of the contract.
so we can, when we create a contract, it's not, we talked about this earlier today. You can't have contracts that go into, in perpetuity, right? So there's limits to, what does the first year experience look like? In any contract, if we're not satisfied with the service that is being provided by the vendor, we go back to the table and we talk about either A, what we're not happy about, or B, there's clauses in the contract that indicates we have a 30, 60, 90-day opportunity to say, thank you, we thought this was gonna work out, but we have to go separate ways.
Okay.
Move to public, yes, thank you.
Dave Sartor, Morris Lane. I just have a few things, but first of all, I wanted to, share my appreciation for the resolution to not exceed 5.3. But I wanted to further clarify based on what I understand, Act 1. And when Act 1 of 2006 came out, I actually was on the school board at the time. And the intent of the act was to provide the public with more input to the raising of taxes in the local school districts. And it's really 3 steps. You know, you've got the index. You don't have to go to referendum immediately, because our district has had a history, often, not recently, often of applying for exemptions from the state based on certain criteria that they could exceed the Act 1 index. And we did it, I think, 11 times in like 14 years, and I'm honestly still appalled by all of that. But, so the intent of the law was to give folks in the community an opportunity to hear their voices. I wanted to, and I think it was stated here, but I want to restate it again as a former board member. Just because the state says X does not mean school districts have to raise taxes to X, and in this case, 5.3. It should be based on our needs and our schools' own. So I wanted to make that perfectly clear. I think some previous boards have just used the Act One index as their excuse to blame the state. Oh, I couldn't do anything about it. The state told me to raise taxes by 5.3. I'm just using this number as an example. That's wrong. The state said you can't exceed 5.3 unless you get exemption or unless you go to referendum. So it is incumbent upon you folks to make a budget that makes sense, provides a great education for our children, our students, but at the same time is reasonable so that you're not pushing out people like retirees and folks who may be at the bottom end of the spectrum from their own salary standpoint. So I understand it's a very delicate balancing act, but I just wanted to make sure, I hope we're way below 5.3, because I truly don't understand. I hear the math, but you know what? I'm not buying that everyone around here can afford a 5.3% increase. But anyway, that was point number one. And point number two, you know me in the audit, and I appreciate your information from the email earlier today pertaining to the audit. But I'm a little confused. If we got a exemption from the state to get the AFR done by December 31st, that means the audit should be done by December 31st. And it doesn't appear that we will in fact do that. So if we in fact don't do that, why are we sharing our AFR with the WSEA at that time when it may change again? So that's a question. I'll stop at that question.
So the deadline to submit to PDE, the AFR information is December 31st. PDE uses that information to calculate a lot of the state subsidies. We would not be the first school district, as honestly, most school districts provide updates to their AFR after they submit. Again, our situation was unique due to the transition. I know you're on the fence about that. I'm just speaking to what I know. But like I said, the single financial audit and the AFR are two separate reporting and the deadlines for the state. And you're absolutely right, but the AFR has to be submitted to the state by December 3rd.
Correct. Now, I'm just gonna say it again. I know we're talking about the budget. I know we're starting to crunch numbers, although we don't have a proposed tax increase. We know behind the scenes, people are working and they're trying to get the numbers all together. We've already solicited information from certain folks in the school district. I forget what the PowerPoints that said. But, and this is for Mr. Miller's education, since he's brand new, and he has not heard me harp on you guys. From 2008-9 school year to 2019-20 school year, our audits have pretty much all been done in October or November. One time it was December, but for the most part, October, November timeframe. And then last 3 school years, I'm counting this one the last 2 audits were in February, and this audit will most likely also be in February.
Correct.
Or beyond next year.
Yes,
I'm
that's
sorry,
correct.
I won't
Not
say-
February,
I
but
won't
you're
say
correct. You're correct.
Beyond December 31st.
You're beyond December 31st, yes.
So
you're correct.
we will experience 3 years that we've violated our own policy 619 that states our audits will be submitted to PDE by December 31st. I know we heard I'm not beating you up, I swear, but we've heard about since January to today, we had issues in turnover and all that, which led to this year's audit. But hey, it's happened in the previous 2 years too. And we were never given the impression we were having problems in the business office. So I'm somewhat suspect.
It's also not true,
Well, it may
but I'll
not,
let you continue.
it may not have been apparent to those of us in the community.
Okay,
Let me say it that way.
okay,
You guys might know,
okay,
I don't think we know.
yeah,
I just want to see that audit done before we see a proposed budget increase for the upcoming school year, because I can't fathom, and you've all heard me say this before, how you can build a budget when you don't know how you left the previous year. It's like the 12th grader that you decide can graduate from our high school before all their tests were graded. It's kind of the same thing. How can you do one without the other? So once again, I beg to get that audit done, and I'm hoping whatever we're doing this year will make it easier next year and in the next 10 years, that we get back to getting these things done in October and November. And you don't have to hear me harp next year when we don't make December 31st for a potential 4th year in a row. I'll stop there. Thank you.
So
Leo Carey, Sykes Lane, Wallingford. The Real Fire, media,
yeah,
I understand we want to tell our story,
sure.
and, I agree with that, but what do we hope it'll achieve? I mean, really, I mean, I had some ideas, if I were you, what I would hope it would achieve, but I'd like to hear it though, you know, what do we expect from it? What's the return on investment? Not in a numerical way, but, you know, in 2.5 minutes, what we hope it will achieve.
Yeah, so, we talk about, who we are as an institution and what we do.
Yeah.
We talk about wanting to be a destination of choice, and that families have an opportunity to think about where is it that they want to call home, and where is it that they want to educate their family and their students. Part of that is making a decision on why Wallingford-Swarthmore versus Grove Street Media versus Radnor versus something else. We believe that we have a unique set of experiences that distinguish us. We also believe that though we understand our tax base, and that yes, you could think about, hey, Grove Street Media's tax base significantly lower, they're really good school districts, why not there? We want to be able to say to ourselves that there are experiences here that we don't believe you'll get any other place. Hence why we want you here, why we want to tell our story. And this is why we had this preliminary conversation about, in addition to what we want to do moving forward, the budget audit is not enough to tell a story. It's a series of numbers. You have to be able to tell our community, for those who don't have children anymore, what am I getting out of this experience? Yes, my kids were wonderful. I love their teachers. They're still there. They graduated. My son's in a master's program. I'm trying to figure out why am I still paying what I'm paying, what I'm getting for my money. So it is that opportunity.
So I think you identified 2 target audiences. One, why we want to attract new taxpayers to buy houses in here. And 2, why we want the current do we want the current taxpayers to send their kids here or not? And 3, I don't know, current, or retirees such as myself to stay here.
Yes. That's correct.
Okay, well, I was thinking that I pity you when you have people standing up at meetings, what I call wild ass accusations that are totally off the wall. And they haven't paid any attention to all the reasons you just cited. What am I getting? Although I think it's a challenge to say to an empty nester, what am I getting?
Sure.
I tell people why I'm still here.
Mhm.
My kids graduated in 89 and 91, so
Wow.
they've been
Yeah.
out of here a long, long time.
Yeah.
But I gave you a positive comment before the meeting about he's a junior and he helps me with tasks around the house. I thought that was wonderful what he told me,
Yeah.
and it makes him a good young citizen.
Mhm.
And these people, good young citizens.
Yeah.
Okay, enough. I think it's a good idea.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right, yeah, with that, call for adjournment of the meeting?
Yes.